Now, I don't know about you, but I have never before been to an inauguration ceremony where the president has already been in office for a year. The advantage is that we can do more than just hope for the right kind of leadership. In this case, we already have it. Fred Slayback has a clear vision for this university's future based on what is best for students, including relatively small classes, a regular dialogue between undergraduates and faculty, a commitment to lifelong learning, and an emphasis on critical thinking. This emphasis is needed because you don't have to be an expert in foreign policy to know that our globe has suffered a great deal in the past from wishful and simplistic thinkers, not to mention those who fail to think at all. Critical thinking is the opposite of that. It's another name for asking hard questions, keeping an open mind, and relying on facts instead of stereotypes or prejudice as the basis of action. Such thinking is a key ingredient for success in almost any field, and yet we often feel surrounded by those at home, overseas, and on our television sets who believe that what matters most is not the logic of what is said, but how loudly and often they say it. For example, millions of people around the world are not taught to think critically, but instead simply to memorize and to repeat the elements of a particular dogma or creed. One of the reasons that peace in the Middle East has been hard to achieve is that many children learn only a single dimension of history, and so end up having rigid views about what's fair and what is not. The perpetrators of 9/11 were taught to believe that America was at war with their religion and that God would reward them for committing murder. And the citizens of North Korea have been lied to every day of their lives about the greatness of their leaders and the supposedly evil intentions of the United States. But it's not only people abroad who would benefit from a fresh dose of critical thinking. Here in the United States, we too can become convinced that we have somehow obtained sole possession of the truth. When I was Secretary of State, I heard many members of Congress say there was no point in foreign travel or in studying the ideas of others. America was the biggest, the strongest, and the best, they said, so why should we care what foreigners think? I have no trouble with the pride that such a statement reflects, but the reality is that our country is not an island. Our security, prosperity, and freedom are intimately connected to the course of events overseas. And if we want other countries to help fight the perils that endanger us, we must do our part to resolve the problems that confront them. And that's why it's so vital that our citizens learn about international history and that we prepare ourselves to compete effectively in the global economy. And it's why the politicians who urge us to abdicate our responsibilities and retreat from the world are simply wrong. One of the great advantages that I had as Secretary of State was the perspective that came with the job. It was my duty to defend U.S. positions, but also to listen to what people in other countries had to say. And this matters because America will have no chance to lead in a world that we don't understand. And because a world in which America is unable to lead would be far more dangerous and chaotic than the one in which we live today. The United States was founded by people who were in the habit of revisiting old assumptions, of refusing to settle for the status quo, of experimenting with new ideas, and of paying heed, in the words of the Declaration of Independence, to the decent opinions of mankind. Over the past 2 centuries, it was this same spirit of intellectual exploration that guided our nation on its rise from wilderness to greatness. These principles of critical thinking and of realism attached to lofty goals provide the foundation for any true democracy and for any system of quality education within a democracy. And so we should be grateful that under the leadership of Fred Slayback, these principles are sure to remain at the forefront of academic and community life here at Texas Wesleyan. In closing, let me congratulate your president once again on his inauguration and thank you all for allowing me to share with you this glorious day. May God bless Texas Wesleyan and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please be seated. You all know that Secretary Albright is well known throughout the world for her pin diplomacy, signaling intentions based on the jewelry that she wore. Last night at the inaugural gala, she wore a Ram pin. So go Rams, signaling her intention to be a part of this community. We reciprocated by providing her with a new pin for her collection of the Wesleyan flame, and she has promised that she will wear it proudly. She has the ram and the flower.